Okay, Mom, it's back to school time, and this year, I'm going to be ready for it. Because now I can save $200 on a Microsoft Surface 3 tablet when I get a Lumia smartphone on AT&T Next.
$200? That's great! As a college student, you could really use that. Does this mean no more living off microwavable noodles?
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. With this deal, balancing my responsibilities will be easier than ever.
The Surface 3 would be perfect for downloading textbooks. It's the tablet that can pretty much replace your laptop.
And I can use the Windows Phone to keep up with friends.
Sounds like you'll finally be ready for whatever the school year throws at you.
Like when I go to the grocery store, I get everything I need for the coming week. Teriyaki noodles, beef noodles, and don't forget seafood noodles.
Okay, sure. If that's the best analogy you've got.
Save $200 on a Microsoft Surface 3 when bundled with any Lumia smartphone on AT&T Next. AT&T, mobilizing your world.
Limited time offer. Select locations includes Microsoft Surface 3 64GB only. Microsoft Surface 3 requires 2-year agreement. Must activate wireless service on both devices. Early termination, activation, or upgrade and other fees, charges, and restrictions apply. See a participating store for all for details.
Blog Talk Radio.
All right, race fans, what's happening? This is your host, Steve Big Sweat Billmeyer, and we're here with Racing with Big Sweat. We're having a world of trouble with Blog Talk Radio, so bear with us. We're trying to get going. I'm telling you this, hoping you can hear me. I just don't know
everybody's
right
out there still.
Do what?
I said, hopefully everybody's is still listening in.
Yeah, good. That voice in the back, folks, is my partner in crime, my producer, Mr. CJ Sports. You doing all right, CJ, other than like me being a little frustrated?
I was a little frustrated. I tried to get a hold of you. I do, at this point, we do have a backup plan. So if this happens to any future references, we do have a backup plan. We'll just have to send out the links in a different number. But I did come up with a backup plan, so no fear. Next time we will be on within the first 5-10 minutes of the time if this happens again. But, yeah, it's kind of frustrating. Blog Talk, we didn't have problems for about 2 years, and all of a sudden the last 2 or 3 weeks, there's been a lot of issues. So we went ahead and, make sure we secured a backup plan. So hopefully BTR gets this all fixed and worked out with all the changes they've been doing. And hopefully we get to keep doing the great shows that we get to do and enjoy our time. And looking forward to tonight's topic. I let Chris know that we're on, so hopefully Chris is able still to call in. And looking forward to see what the listeners got to say and where this conversation ends up going to.
Yeah, I think it's going to be real interesting. For those that don't know, what we're going to do tonight, we're going to veer away from our usual show, and since the Confederate flag issue seemed to be in the news a lot this weekend in relation to NASCAR and the Cup tracks and how they're handling it and everything, we wanted to talk about that. We wanted to get people's opinion on both your feelings pro or con about the Confederate flag and your feelings about what NASCAR wants to do about the Confederate flag and the pressure NASCAR is putting on the tracks to do something about the Confederate flag. So give us a call at 718-664-9861, and we'll get you on the air and let you talk about it, let you voice your opinion. And let me assure you, nobody will bash you or your opinion for your opinion, and it'll be totally uncensored other than your choice of language, but we definitely want to hear what you've got to say about this. Chris Creighton, are you there yet?
No, I do not have him in the studio yet. I just tagged him in a post as well, so hopefully I can get his attention because he ain't hit me back on Messenger, so I'm waiting on him to get in the studio.
Cool deal. Well, while we got a minute, I'll tell you what my feelings are about the Confederate flag. Since, in case you hadn't noticed, I have a Southern accent and I'm from the South. And this is something that's, I don't know how to really put it, but it's it's a Southern boy's heritage. It is something that's important to us. It does, as far as my opinion goes, I don't see any hate or anything like that in the flag. I fly the flag for one simple reason. My ancestors fought in the Confederate Army, and I will continue to honor my Confederate ancestors. It has nothing to do with how I feel about other races or other groups or anything like that. It's just that, like I said, this is part of my heritage. It's something that I will carry with me the rest of my life, and it's something that I'm proud of. A lot of people look down on it because they associate it with hate groups like white supremacist groups and things like that, because they fly the flag simply because they want people to think that it means that if you show that flag, you're anti-black or anti-Jewish or whatever they stand for. I don't follow them too much. But that's the impression that they want to give, and that's a false impression. That's not how most Southerners are. Like I said, it's part of our heritage. It's something that we believe in. We understand that we lost the war and all this, but it doesn't change the fact that it's part of who we are. No more than, as I was explaining to somebody the other day, Southerners, it seems, have a lot more respect for women, and especially their mothers. I was saying I started smoking cigarettes when I was 13. I started smoking in front of my dad when I was 14, but I was in my early 20s living on my own before I started smoking in front of my mother, just as a sign of respect. I have never, in all my years, ever said the F word in front of my mother. It's just not something we do. I guess we hold our mothers to a higher standard than other people do. But that, like a lot of other things, is just the way we are in the South. Just like I talk slow and I move slow, that's a Southern thing too. But still, that's just the way we are. That's just the way we do things. And I don't appreciate being grouped in with any other group, especially any kind of hate group, just because of my heritage. And I try not to do that with other people. I try to give them the chance to prove themselves the way they are and everything. But all this arose from a maniac that murdered some people in a church in South Carolina. And because he had posted a picture on Facebook of him with a Confederate flag, suddenly the Confederate flag was the worst thing you could fly. And people started hollering to take it down from in front of the South Carolina Capitol building where it's flown for 100 years. They don't want universities like Mississippi State University. I think that's Ole Miss. Chris will clear that up. But, they don't want the flag flown there either, because of what they've associated it with now. And my feeling on that is, if you're going to take that flag down, take them all down. You don't want to fly the Confederate flag because of what you think it means? Take down the gay pride flag for what some of their groups do. Watch National Geographic and learn about the gay boy gangsters, which is pretty much another hate group along the lines of the white supremacists. So take the gay pride flag down. the Black Panther Party flag. You can't deny the Black Panthers have been known to be a hate group. And the fact that you hear Louis Farrakhan last week promoting killing cops and white people, you look at the things that happened in Baltimore and Ferguson, take the Black Pride flag down too. There's a lot of hate involved there from that side. So, if you're going to take one of them down, be consistent. Take all of them down for the same reason. Don't pick and choose. And if you really want to get historical about it, take the American flag down, because America committed one of the largest genocides in the 18th century against the American Indians. They took their land and wiped them out, pretty much. So I'm sure that there's a lot of American Indians that find that flag offensive too. So why shouldn't you take the American flag down? Things like this get started and they just snowball into a giant mess. And it's not good for the country. It's not good for the people in the country. It's not even good for things between me and my friends and me and my group members in NASCAR and other racing. Shit. But, everybody, this is not a minor argument. It is an instant division of people. You're either in one side or the other. There's really no middle room about this. And that's what I hope to talk about tonight was, where people stood on this. What are your feelings about the Confederate flag? Do you think it represents racism or hate groups or anything like that? Or do you think it's just, I see a lot of people say it's just the flag, it's no big deal. And that's true to a lot of people. It just happens not to be true to me. But not for the reasons that a lot of other people think. I'm baffled by it, to tell you the truth. And now NASCAR has jumped on the bandwagon. They don't want to be associated with the flag. They're pushing the tracks to not allow the flag to be flown there, which the track has the right to do that. The track is privately owned. It's not a public company. So if they want to make a rule that they don't want the Confederate flag on their property, well, they can do that. They tried a deal at Darlington, and I can't think of it was Daytona, I think, where they wanted you to give them your Confederate flag, and they would give you an American flag. And it was stated in the media, Darlington lost money on that deal because they had bought a ton of American flags, and very few people traded them in. And then again, if you get down to not wanting the Confederate flag flown at a racetrack, well, if I drive my truck to the races, do I have to take the Confederate flag license plate that I have on the front of my truck off before I can go in? Do I have to take the little 4x6-inch decal of the Confederate flag on my rear window? Do I have to scrape that off before I can go to the races? And I don't have one, but what if I had a Confederate flag tattoo? Would I have to cover it with duct tape or something to be allowed in the track? Excuse me. There was a lot of false information coming from NASCAR in Darlington that they wanted the flags down because it was blocking people's line of sight. And my reply to that is, how big a damn flag have you got that you can block somebody's line of vision across the track, especially if they're sitting up top in the suites where the corporate people are that are the main ones they don't want to offend. I mean, they can see the back stretch from the front stretch with no problem, unless you got a really big flag out there that's going to block their view. So I don't buy that bull crap either. I mean, it's just, the bottom line is NASCAR didn't want a camera to pan across or focus in on one of the corners and there be a Confederate flag flying in the picture. They just didn't want to see that. They didn't want their corporate people to see that. So that was the reason that they wanted to get rid of the flag. And I think NASCAR is being rather heavy-handed about it, trying to force their will on the other tracks, which the tracks are going to fall in line because NASCAR is their biggest source of income. You know, the fear of losing the NASCAR races outweighs the fear of losing a few fans over this issue. So I don't see any resolution to the issue. I just see at the end of the year, NASCAR is going to tell all the tracks nobody can fly the Confederate flag. And that's the way it's going to be, whether you like it or not.
Now, I know you said something about, you know, it should be up to, you know, some of the tracks that are independently owned. Now, doesn't NASCAR own some of the tracks themselves as well?
Oh, yeah, they own a ton of them. As a matter of fact, between NASCAR and SMI, Bruton Smith's outfit, they pretty much own all the tracks.
So, I mean, like, the ones that NASCAR owns, I know that you said talk about the tracks deciding on how they want to handle that. With NASCAR, and this being a NASCAR thing, and you know, we feel that it's not necessarily NASCAR's place to kind of step in on the tracks they own. How do you feel they should handle that if they're not necessarily needed in to kind of step in and kind of dictate all this, but it is their tracks on certain tracks? How do you feel those tracks should be handled?
Well, NASCAR on their track is going to do what they're trying to do now. They're not going to let the flag fly.
Gotcha.
On Bruton Smith tracks, Bruton has a southern accent. He's from down here. But he's a smart businessman, and he realizes with the tracks he's got and the overhead he's got, if NASCAR takes away his races or rearranges the schedule so some of his tracks lose multiple dates and are cut back to only one race a year, and NASCAR gets pissy with them and takes all the Bruton Smith tracks out of the chase and just has the ISC tracks in the chase. I mean, it could be costly and hard on SMI and Bruton Smith financially to buck NASCAR at this time. But then again, there's been rumors, you know, for a few years that Bruton Smith wants to start another racing series equal to NASCAR, simply because right now he pretty much owns enough tracks to do it. It's just getting the drivers to come over and race in his league, which I'm sure to block that, NASCAR would tell the drivers, well, if you go race at Bruton's tracks, you can't race at NASCAR tracks anymore. So there's a lot of power being struggled on over that issue too. So, you know, I just think NASCAR is going to get their way on this, and there's pretty much nothing we can do about it.
Now, I'm gonna you gave your opinion. I'm gonna kind of give a brief, just of my opinion. We got Chris in the studio, so I have a feeling I'm gonna be the odd man out slightly in this. and then I'm going to let Chris give his opinion on it, and we'll try to get this floor opened up for callers. Me being born in the North, I've spent pretty much exactly half my life up north and half my life down south. 18 years, a little bit after 18 years, 18 and a half years old, I joined the military. So I therefore left the North, came down south, been down south the other about 18 and a half years of my life. So I understand the heritage parts. I've been with Southern people. I've lived with Southern people. Both the last two relationships over the last 15 years now have been with Southern girls. So I completely understand that. And the whole mother thing you're talking about, I still have the utmost respect. Everybody knows who my mommy is, and both of y'all have been on Facebook. You all know how I am about my mother. And so, that's just, I understand what you're saying. It's more of a Southern thing, but there's a lot of us Northerners that were raised right, so just few far in between to find us, how to treat our mother and put our mother on, on that pedestal where she should be for everything she has done for us throughout the years. With that being said, unfortunately, my life experience, I've been around a lot of people that have been racist. I am by far the most unracist person in the world. As a matter of fact, I was the best man and the only white person in the wedding. I was let go 2 jobs ago because of the fact that I had pretty much an all-black crew and had almost all-black clientele in my store. I don't see color. I only see green when I'm working, and outside of that, I take you on how you treat me is how you're going to get treated. It don't matter if you're white, you're yellow, you're black, you're brown. I don't care what color you are. Whatever respect that you give me, I give you. So with the flag being said at the tracks, I understand to a point how it can be offensive because I don't care for the flag myself. It's not one of those things that I judge you differently. It's not one of those things that I go out of my way just because you have the flag. But there's a part of me because I've been around enough people that they were racist and I know I shouldn't stereotype the two together, but it seemed like it always went hand in hand. I do have a bitterness towards the flag. But after living in the South for 18 years, I also understand the heritage. So when it comes to the sports, as long as NASCAR or any sport itself is not promoting the flag or not waving the flag themselves because of the controversy it could cause, as long as they're not involved with it, then I'm fine with it. If you're a fan, as long as you are not promoting the Ku Klux Klan or any other hate group, I don't care what kind of group or what kind of flag it is, then I don't care the flag's out there. It's never, I've been to probably 30, 35 NASCAR events and probably about 30 in the last 3 years. The flag never once has bothered me. I have not thought two thoughts about it. I really don't care. As a matter of fact, I probably have more hatred and probably get irked off more when I see daggone Dale Jr. flags than I see any other flag out there. That's just me because I'm an anti-Junior fan. But to me, it also means, okay, you got Michael Vick and the dogfighting controversy that still goes on about Michael Vick being in the sport. So now, because that offends so many people in the sporting world, should we now not allowed to be flying Pittsburgh Steelers flags at stadiums anywhere? And you can say the same thing about Ray Rice, who knocked out his fiancée at the time in the elevator a couple of years ago, and the whole domestic violence thing became a big thing in the NFL because of him. Should there not be Baltimore Ravens flags being flying everywhere because you had one bad apple that, represented that flag? So that's where now you start getting into nitpicking and choosing your battles, because if you got one bad person that flew a Confederate flag and you're trying to ban it from a sport, then you need to consider all these other flags that you've had one bad apple and whether or not they should be allowed to be flown at sport venues as well. So, like I said, as long as the sport is not promoting it, just because it can be controversial, I don't care. But if it comes to a fan and they're promoting it and it's towards hate groups, it could be the Black Panthers, it could be the KKK, it could be, I don't care, the gay pride, I don't care what your cause is. If you're flying that flag to cause a racial or some kind of issue, then yes, I can understand somebody stepping in and not banning it, but removing them at least from the venue. But as long as it's your heritage or what you believe in, I really don't care what flag you fly, as long as it's done in a proper and appropriate manner.
definitely so. And I'll tell you, my opinion has changed about it somewhat, because I used to feel like, and it's kind of a too strong a stance, really is the best way to say it. I used to feel like, I don't care if this flag offends you. You know, I'm going to fly it because of my heritage or because of what I want. And somebody pointed out to me, well, if your neighbor put an ISIS flag on their front porch, how would you feel about that? And I was like, well, I'd want that taken down immediately, you know. I don't want to see anybody promote a group that beheads people and rapes women and stuff like that. And they kind of said, well, you know, you can't be not offended by one and want to keep flying it, but on the other hand, be offended by another one and not want that one to be flown. That's kind of a double standard. So I have rethought my position on that and my way of thinking on that, but regardless, it's not going to stop me from the way I feel about the South and the pride I have in the South. It just, I'm trying not to be so vocal about it or promote it so much. Chris, you're down in Mississippi in the heart of the South. What's your feelings on this?
Well, everybody turn your radios off, because it's going to get nasty. First of all, you've got to know American history.
Yeah.
And the problem with all this going on right now is it could be resolved by a simple history lesson. You see, it wasn't just the Southerners that was involved in slavery. It was the United States. And for many years, that American flag stayed on that pole as slavery was accepted in all parts of this country. Only when the South succeeded from the North did slavery become an issue. And the North decided then that they didn't want to be a part of it anymore. So however you read those history books, the beginning was slavery was in the United States, not the South. Slavery was accepted under the same flag that we love and are still proud of to this day. Now, are we proud of the things that we've had to do and the things that we've done? No. Do I think that there's been inequality to all races, including the Caucasian race of poor backgrounds? Of course. But now we're putting all this on a flag that has not killed nobody, that has never taken part in any illegal activity. We allow gang signs to be thrown on TV all night long. We allow people to have open discussions that lead into threats on TV with Jerry Springer and all that other stuff. You want to find offensive? Turn your TV on. That's offensive. Okay? The flag is only an issue because they want it to be. Because the people that are mainstream media are brewing this racial war. We hear it over and over again. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I don't mean to turn anybody off, but the fact of it is, it ain't about the flag, Steve. CJ, it's about equality. It's about everybody having equal rights. And at this point in time, if you're a Southern man, whether you're black or white, it's not equal times. We're suffering. Our jobs are lost. Our schools are being turned into prisons. This is a real issue. The flag, if it doesn't need to be raised on federal court grounds or whatever, that's what the people should have voted and said. So we're allowing these distractions in a world that's full of it right now. There's wars in every on every continent. There's a war right here in America. But do we want to fight over a flag? I mean, that's like practice. You know, you practice, right? Well, Alan Iverson had a problem with practice. He practiced and practiced and practiced. Well, I tell you what, we can keep on saying flag, 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 and every time we are, we're dividing ourselves from what this country really stands for. See, 14 years ago, we was all Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I continue to stand to be. I have Southern heritage. I am proud to be from the South. I look at no man and judge them by the color of their skin or the religion that they believe or the sex that they chose to be with. I am an equality person. But when you tell me we can't have something and you don't have a real reason to stand for it, we're not going to accept that, Steve. And that's my opinion. Brass, hard, in your face, hashtag in it to win it, hashtag live it like you love it. I'm in Mississippi. We worked together for 50 years. We went to school together. My children even go to a church that's biracial. Don't come into this area and talk about there being a racial war. No, we don't want that. Nobody wants that.
My big question, though, is with NASCAR trying to be more diverse. You know, they got the drive for diversity. You know, we had Juan Pablo. We've had different nationalities coming into the sport, and they're trying to be more diverse. You know, in the sport's trying to expand to make sure that they have the world's greatest drivers on their track every Sunday afternoon, and they're trying to expand their viewership. Obviously, you know, the women in the sport have helped, you know, draw women crowd into the sport and fill the stands, and they're trying to do that with every race. And I can remember going to races back, 18 years. I went to Atlanta when it used to be the final race back in '96 when Gordon won his first championship, and you didn't see many other races at the tracks back then. But now it is very common to see a little bit of everybody at the track, and it's starting to become more and more of a common thing. With that being said, and knowing that most people don't look at the flag as anything to do with racism, but you have your some, how does NASCAR go and approach that a more proper way to make sure that they are expanding their viewership to all nationalities and yet still not take away from their tradition and
ban all flags but the American? Okay, and that means you can't buy 88 flag. Ban them all. Ban all flagpoles. NASCAR solved the issue.
Yep.
It's simple.
The thing is, the way I see it, number one, when I was cup racing in the mid-'80s and early '90s, especially in the mid-'80s, and all the cup teams and everything, I knew of one black crewman in the whole deal and no black drivers. And people say, well, that's because NASCAR is racist. They don't want the blacks in there driving their cars or anything. And that's not it at all. Think about who you know that's a race car driver. How did they get a ride in a race car? Without any experience or anything, they usually had a family member, their dad, their granddad, their uncle, that owned a race car and gave them the opportunity to drive it to see if they could drive.
It was passed down. Right.
Yeah, and black people, they don't have, in the past, they haven't had family members that race stock cars. So the opportunity to get in a stock car and prove that you're good at it was very, very limited. Much more so.
Drag racing was the same way. I think drag racing probably turned to an open, diverse scenery a little bit quicker than NASCAR. But now, I mean, now you're seeing other diversities at dirt tracks and small tracks and big tracks. And I think in the next 10 to 15 years, you're going to see those kids start coming in and actually being. So that's what I'm saying. It's ridiculous with all the problems that we have in this world today that we're worried about an issue like that. There's so many other things. And NASCAR, like I said, could easily take care of it. And I told my wife, I said, they'll ban flagpoles. What do you mean they'll ban flagpoles? Because they already give you a height restriction on it. So in order to keep any controversy, if it doesn't calm down, NASCAR will wind up banning flagpoles.
Yep, exactly. It's just, people can look at any subject and make more out of it, or find things that are there that they think are there that are not really there. And I think that's a lot of what's going on with NASCAR, the flag, and minorities being in NASCAR and everything. I'm like you. I don't, when I had a late model stock car team, I didn't give a damn what color you were. If you could drive a race car and you could win races and make some money, I'd put you in the car in a second.
That's right.
And I probably shouldn't tell this, but I am. I tried out 2 different black females to see if they could drive a car. One of them was a cab driver from New York, so I figured she'd know how to get around traffic and stuff. But I tried those out because I wanted to find a black woman that could drive a race car, put her in it, and prove to the world, number one, that not only can blacks drive race cars, but women can drive race cars. This was before Danica and everything. And I knew that Oprah Winfrey, who has more money than God, I knew she promoted a lot of black race teams in drag racing. So I figured, well, if I got a black driver that's female, she could probably go to Oprah and get a sponsorship deal from her. But I couldn't find any female at the time, really, because I tried some white ones too that could drive a race car. Simple. That was all it was. That was the only thing that kept me from putting them in there. Is they weren't
so much
race car drivers.
Times have changed so much since then. It's really more of a rich man sport than it is a race sport for sure.
Yeah.
Now, with the whole flag issue with NASCAR, do you guys think it's more of they're overthinking or over-concerned whether or not it causes a race issue, or is it more of, okay, this is money man sports, and they're worried about their sport not growing fan-wise to bring in that bottom dollar because they're worried that that flag being flown at their tracks is alienating them and, kind of drawing them away from the track?
I think they overreact.
I think that basically what NASCAR is doing is following the tread that's going through the whole country right now. All of a sudden there's a lot of controversy over the Confederate flag. NASCAR doesn't really want to be involved in that controversy. So they're following kind of along with everybody else and saying, let's not have the flag flying at our tracks. And I don't blame them for that, and I can understand that way of thinking, but it doesn't change my way of thinking either.
Well, I mean, Steve, it comes down to we know how this world is driven. It's driven by money, okay? And NASCAR is a money-driven sport. All it took was about 3 phone calls, and NASCAR has to make a statement. It is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it. I think that NASCAR's probably done the best that they can to help with this issue, and I respect the fact that they give out American flags in consideration of any other flag, because that's the one thing that we need to remember. We're all still Americans. And I don't have any bad blood against what the decision they made. When you have a business, you have to make those kind of decisions. NASCAR hasn't promoted the rebel flag, and I can't tell you when. We watched what happened when the NRA tried to sponsor a race, so, the backlash with that. So, we're not surprised, but don't restrict the camper from being able to carry on his tradition. This is going to pass over. It happens about every 10 years, but when we start taking away rights, it's somebody else is going to be offended as well.
Now real quick, for anybody out there that's listening and you guys want to weigh in on what we're talking about tonight, you can call in at 718-664-8255. 9861. Just press 1. That lets us know that you're wanting to come on and give your opinion or, make your comments. I also want to say, thoughts and prayers out to those. We're about 2 hours away from one of the most horrific days that we've all experienced in our lifetime was September 11th, and about 11 hours away from when the towers were struck. So I want to make sure that we send our thoughts and prayers out to those families that still have to live this nightmarish of a day that's about to come upon us here in just a couple hours.
Yeah, that's something else we're going to address with my racing group, NASCAR and Other Racing. I'm going to put a post up later and ask for everybody to not post anything, not say anything, or, just have silence from the time that that first plane hit the towers until that last plane hit the ground. That I've got to look up the time frames for that and everything, but I would just like for people to show a little bit of remorse and a little bit of respect, and just not, it's not the time to be chatting on Facebook or anything. People, I've seen groups try to do that, with Dale Earnhardt Sr., the day he died and everything, but this is a lot bigger deal than just Dale Earnhardt Sr. This is something that profoundly affected the whole country, and I think it should be noted because I don't want anybody to forget it. You need to remember this and keep it in your mind.
I'll get the times for you, Steve. I'm trying to pull it up right now. I saw that post earlier. It's like 8:46 to, I think, a little bit after 11 o'clock on that time, but I'll have the times confirmed as I'm scrolling through right now. Also, before we jump back into the NASCAR topic, you had a big announcement earlier in the week about your buddy and the seasoning. How about you plug that to let people know where they can go and get some of that?
Oh, yeah. That was something we put up, and I put it up today. My good friend Jimmy Haywood, he is a great guy, a true Southerner. And I don't say that as a joke or anything. That's just the way Jimmy is, and I love him for it, and he knows it. But Jimmy makes this seasoning and grill rub called Snafu Seasoning. And he sent me some, and we were going to give it away to anybody that called in. We'll send you a bottle of it just so you can try it and see what you think about it. And Jimmy's going to continue sponsoring our show, and he stays involved. And the thing that I have a lot of Snafu seasoning, and I've tried it. It's great on bacon. I'm a baconator, and I never thought anything could make bacon taste any better, but it does. And if you read the side of the bottle, the ingredients, it's only like 6 ingredients. There's no preservatives or anything artificial in it. It has a very short ingredient list, and it's all natural. Jimmy has a website. This stuff isn't in the stores. You have to order it online, and you just go to www.snafuseasoning.com, and snafu is spelled S-N-A, and in the back half of it, something I say all the time, F-U. So it's S-N-A-F-U seasoning, and it's really worth a try. And like I said, call in, and I'll get your name and address, and I'll send you a bottle, and you can try it and see what you think of it. If you're listening, Jimmy, thank you very much, bud. I miss you, and I love you. And back to what Chris said earlier, I've had the same conversation with people where they've pointed out things like Joe Weatherly in the early 60s used to race with fingerless gloves. He always had those on, and he always raced in a white Rebel 300 shirt that had Confederate flags on it. And they're like, well, it was all right then. Why isn't it all right now? And my reply to that is, if you take that attitude, a lot of people aren't old enough to remember this, but there was a thing called Jim Crow laws back in the 50s that prohibited blacks from using a water fountain. Water fountains would have signs over them that said white only. Bathrooms would have signs on them that said white only. Restaurants would not let black people sit in the front of the restaurant. They had to come in and eat in the back and everything. And that hadn't been that long ago, because the small town that I grew up in when I was in high school, the one restaurant in that town, and this is in the mid-'70s, was the same way. It took me a while to figure out where I never saw any black people eating in the dining room, but I'd see them come in and out in the back, and I just figured they worked there until somebody explained it to me that, not so much the owner, but society wouldn't have them mixing like that. So when people tell me, it used to be acceptable, I'm like, well, there's a lot of things that used to be acceptable that aren't acceptable now. So you can't really use that argument. You've got to draw on today and today's climate, today's way things are today. We've got too many people that consider themselves Native Americans, true Americans, black Americans, Mexican Americans. The bottom line is everybody here is an American, period. You want to fight about something? Join up with the other Americans and go to the Middle East and fight ISIS, fight some of the Muslim terrorist groups. Don't fight among each other. Nothing's going to get accomplished that way. You want to fight to make the world a better place. That's the battle that needs to be fought now.
I agree, 100%. There's so many other issues that we've got, so many other.
Yeah, it's like you said, when you boil it down to the basics, it's just a flag. It's not worth all this commotion and hassle and everything. Get right with yourself and get right with the country and even get right with God. But just get right and join together and fix a problem in the world. You want to fix something? Jump on world hunger. That's a giant problem. Why spend your time bitching and fighting about a flag when there's so much bigger problems that you could help solve? And that's what I'd like to see Americans and everybody, that's where your mind needs to be thinking. That's what you need to be concentrating on, is how can I make my life better, my family's life better, and life better for people in general on this planet.
Now, I have a question that's on topic, but kind of off topic at the same time. With all this NASCAR memorabilia and collector's item, with NASCAR moving forward and kind of putting their foot down on that, does this now, I know this is not kind of the angle the show is going, but I was just thinking, does this make these collector's items more of a valuable thing, knowing that NASCAR is no longer going to have any of that part of their programs, part of their merchandise, part of anything anymore?
I don't see it affecting them too much, because a couple of months ago, somebody decided, I don't know who, but somebody decided that the General Lee Charger from the Dukes of Hazzard was racist and offensive because it had a Confederate flag on the roof. So they quit producing those cars, and if you go to a toy store now to buy General Lee, it doesn't have the Confederate flag on it. And you would think that the cars that do have the flag, the cars before all this controversy and everything, would be worth some money. but I haven't seen anything indicating that. I've seen on eBay and stuff people trying to do that, trying to say that car is worth some money and asking outrageous price for it. But I don't think I think it's going to make that big a deal. I would hope not anyway. What do you think, Chris?
It's a good question. I've got several Talladega shirts that, as a matter of fact, we went to Talladega in May and asked the cashier. We were like, "Where's the flag shirts? Where's the Rebel flag shirts?" And she said that they had quit merchandising those, and this is before this even started. Heather and I, my wife, we always go to Talladega. We always like to get the Rebel flag shirts. So we were scratching our heads. Okay, so they're not going to be making them anymore. She said no, because they go to venues in certain places and they don't really like it. So I wish that I could say that they were going to be more valuable, because I would probably put Saran wrap on all my Talladega shirts that have Rebel flags on them. But I don't see it as being very important down the road. Like I said, it's really just a trend to get people stirred up over something. We're in tough political times, financial times, stock market's going up and down. We've seen things this past month. Training exercises, Jade Helm, 15. A lot of things have been coming out in the news. And now we're on to a new presidency. And, I mean, everybody's floored that Donald Trump is ahead of where he is. And, I want to remind everybody it's still a year and 3 months before we even vote for a president. So who's leading the polls now may not necessarily mean who's going to be elected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But a lot of these issues are being brought up because our country continues to change. And it's our voice that makes that change. And if you don't believe it, look at Donald Trump being leading in the ratings, okay? That just shows that the people do decide who they want to speak for them. And I'm not going to endorse Donald Trump. I'm going to say Donald Trump is a perfect sign of the times, how we as Americans are fed up with political governorship. We've watched our jobs being shipped out for the last probably 12 to 14 years, which means that there was Republicans and Democrats that had this problem. The flag issue, going back to the merchandise, it's a trend, y'all. It's probably going to be wasted away on some other next big idea. If not, then there'll be proper measures taken to it. But you'll still see them in people's yards and everywhere else. You can't take that away from people who are, I guess, willing to stand there in their yard and battle somebody for it. I don't feel that way, but I also don't feel that it's much of an issue other than bigotry by the media to get us distracted from things like the Pacific trade and the continuous stuff on TV that talks about the end of the world. I mean, it's a scare tactic, and I'm not going to be pushed by it.
Back to Steve's point real quick when we were talking about the Facebook and silence. It was from 8:46 to 10:28. I also shared it with you, Chris, if you want to pass it on. But I know pretty much everybody's going to be passing it on, and basically what it is everybody's asking for Facebook silence from 8:46 to 10:28 tomorrow to remember those lives that were lost.
I think it's a great idea, and I think it's very respectful. And while we got a moment and it's on my mind, I'd like to mention something off topic, so to speak. But I got word Monday morning that a guy I had worked with, and matter of fact, this gentleman's name was Mike Jarrett. Mike and I, when we worked on the Days of Thunder movie, we roomed together in a motel in Darlington, and we were in Darlington for over 3 months filming. So we were together every night, and we got to know each other good. And if you've ever seen Mike Jarrett, he's a tad overweight. his nickname, everybody called him Fats, or they called him Spanky because he looked like Spanky on the old Our Gang movies and stuff. But he was a hell of a guy, and they found him dead Sunday, and it was a bad deal. Mike's 2 years younger than me, so it kind of hit home to me and got me thinking and everything. Got me remembering a lot of good memories that I had with Mike. And if you want to find out what I'm talking about, on the NASCAR and Other Racing face page, there's a short video, about 10 minutes, of Fats. We had Rick Hendrick got, I think it was in 2001, got everybody that had ever worked at Hendrick Motorsports or had driven for Hendrick Motorsports together for a big giant birthday party for his dad, Papa Joe Hendrick. And after the dinner and everything, we were all standing around talking, and Fats got to telling stories about him and Robert G. and everything. And I had forgot it, and I watched it, and I laughed my ass off. It is hilarious, the stuff he says. It's well worth watching just for the humor value of it. But my prayers go out to Mike's family and especially to Fats. I hate to see him go. He was a hell of a guy. All right, don't everybody talk at once.
Beautifully said. I'm sorry I had my mute button on. Victim of the mute button once again.
I was scrolling through trying to find the video so I could watch as soon as the show was over with, so I was kind of scrolling through, and I was kind of waiting for Chris to jump in or you continue on.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I tell you what, Kyle Busch, what's going on with this guy? Huh? I mean, what we talked about last week, and now he's in the chase. Is he going to win it? Because I seen a Ford commercial today with Joey Logano, and I think Ford's done pick their man, and Joey's going to run him down.
You know, it's funny because when we were talking about things we were looking forward to in Darlington, all three things are exactly what I wanted to see. I got to see. I got to see the retro, the old school paint jobs. I got to see Hendrick still not change momentum and really not show us how strong, or I don't know, give us anything really to hope for so far for this chase out of the Hendrick Motorsport or out of the Hendrick stable. And once again, we got to see Joe Gibbs Racing show us that it wasn't just a few races, it wasn't a fluke as Carl Edwards wins. They showed us that that team is legit, that all four of those drivers at any given Sunday can.
Hello?
Did we lose Chris? CJ all of a sudden?
I don't know. He got zapped, man.
Another Blog Talk Radio disaster. Well, my feelings on the Kyle Busch deal, y'all have been hearing my feelings for quite a while, because as soon as Kyle won that third race, I started telling y'all, put the windows up and close the door. This chase deal is over. Kyle Busch is going to take it. If he's come back and win 3 races at the time from a severely broken leg and foot, and the momentum that he's gained from that and the tremendous amount of self-confidence he's gained, give it up, guys. It's Kyle Busch. There's no way he could lose that championship other than by bad luck. And he's won 4 races now. He's running strong quite a bit. And my opinion hadn't changed, folks. It's going to be Kyle Busch. And people that know me know I'm not a big Kyle Busch fan, but I have a ton of respect for Kyle Busch because of the race car driver that he is. In my opinion, there's nobody in NASCAR that's a smarter driver that can analyze what his car is doing in addition to be able to be running side by side with somebody, and I've seen this before on TV, he's running side by side with another car and telling his crew chief how that other car is handling through the corner. Forget his car. He's watching this other car and can tell you how that car is handling and what's wrong with that car. And I realize Jimmy Johnson's a 6-time champion and everything, but Jimmy Johnson isn't as smart as Kyle Busch is when he gets behind the wheel. Him and Chad Knaus together, yeah, they are. But Jimmy is a driver by himself or anybody else. There's just nobody smarter than Kyle Busch on the racetrack.
Kyle is a wheelman. There is not a doubt in my mind. And he can do things in a race car that most of us can only dream about. He is the modern-day Cole Trickle.
Yeah.
But he is also temperamental. And a lot of times, until you get over that anger, you're going to be a victim of your own demise. And I hope by the end of the season we can put that to rest. But until he shows us that he won't help us, I'm just going to stick with it. You know, I'm like Missouri. I'm a show me state, man. You know, I gotta see it because Kevin Harvick, he's on the downside, I know, but we're coming chase time. I would say probably 8 out of the 16 guys that have an actual chance, and I figured there'd only be 3 in it coming by the second to last race of the year.
Now, another thing that came out this last week was the movement of Clint Boyer to H. Scott Motorsports, and then eventually taking over Tony Stewart's ride. How did you guys feel about that, and your thoughts on that?
I think it's just a rumor. I don't see it happening. Number one, Clint Boyer's a man's man, and he has a strong sense of loyalty. Mm-hmm. He knew things were going to hell at MWR, and he didn't say a word about it. He stuck with it and did his job. I don't see him going to a race team, having a race team invest the extra money it's going to take to run that car for him for 1 year and then walk away from it, especially since it's my understanding that H. Scott doesn't have an alliance with SHR. Their alliance is with Chip Ganassi Racing. Mm-hmm. So I would have thought, that's where he would go if he was going to spend a year at H. Scott, and he would move on to Ganassi Racing, especially with Kaufman over there. But I think there might be a little discomfort between him and Kaufman and the way Kaufman walked out and him racing for him again. I think Boyer's best chance and the best opportunity for him all the way around would be Furniture Row Racing is talking about adding a second car in 2017. I think they might go ahead and step up the program a year and add that second car now while Clint's available. Clint and Martin Truex are close to the same age. They can relate. It would be very similar to the deal at Penske where Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano are right about the same age, and they relate real good, and they've suddenly become a team to beat because of that. People say, well, they can't afford it yet or anything. Well, it really doesn't cost that much money to add a second team if you've got the first team in place. As long as your shop's big enough to hold enough cars for 2 people, the only expense you've got adding a second team is paying the employees. All the shop equipment's already in place. The whole shop infrastructure is already in place, so you don't have to go out and buy a bunch of equipment so you can repairs and build other cars. You've already got it. The only thing they would have to add would be a couple of welders and stuff like that, so that some of their tools wouldn't get tied up. But to add a second team would be very inexpensive.
Especially like because in 5-hour energy following Clint Boyer as well.
Yeah, definitely. They're going with him, and I'm sure he has a good relationship with Peak Antifreeze and Maxwell House Coffee. They've sponsored his cars. I mean, I don't see a problem with Clint bringing enough money to the team to run the full season. And I think, all in all, that would be the hot ticket for him. That would be the best way to go.
Well, and that's a really good theory, Steve. I think that, being that he brings his own sponsorship, he can kind of go wherever he wants to go, and somebody like Furniture Row could definitely take a risk with him better than they could somebody else that doesn't guarantee a sponsor. And they've already been teammates before. In my own little caution flag world, I want him to go to Wood Brothers. I think that those two together, being Clint Boyer's experience and from the down roots of dirt track driver, he could bring something special to Wood Brothers. And I feel big time that Ryan Blaney will be a full-time Penske driver next year. Now, the alliance between his dirt track cars, which are Toyotas at this time, and Penske with Scott Bloomquist and Mark Martin, I think we can put all the pieces together, because this is going to be a financial decision that goes beyond what he does at the track. It has to do with his brand, which makes the Wood Brothers and Clint Boyer together unimaginable. I mean, what do you think about that, Steve?
I think that's a very reasonable theory. I see that. Another thing that kind of points me toward Clint Boyer and Furniture Row Racing is Furniture Row Racing is based in Colorado. Clint Boyer's from Kansas, has a lot of ties to Kansas, so it's definitely not as far of a jump or a move for Clint than it would be for, say, another driver that's an East Coast driver based in North Carolina or reasonably close to have to go to Colorado and start there. I think it would be a lot easier on Clint. But I'm like you. I think the Wood Brothers would be a good fit for him also. And that reminds me of something else. I don't know if y'all caught this or not, but the pace laps at the Southern 500, Leonard Wood was holding up the pit board for the 21 car that they use now, and his brother, Delano Wood, who is in his mid-80s now, was holding up the old pit board that they used for David Pearson. And if you don't know who Delano Wood is, the biggest thing that stands out about him is he was the original stud jack man. He was a guy that would take those jacks back in that day, weighed 70 or 80 pounds, and he'd haul that jack around that car just as fast as one of these pro athletes today with a 15 or 20 pound jack can go. Delano was right there with him. Takes one pump of the jack to get the car off the ground today. Delano's time, it took 6 to 8 pumps of the jack to get it up, and they were still fast. And that, lack of a better term, that dude was a hoss. He could handle anything, but I got to meet him. He retired right after I started Cup racing, and I got to meet him and got to talk to him a little bit. And he was a total Southern gentleman, more so than Leonard and Glenn. That was the first impression you got of him. And then when you saw him on pit road, it was like good thing I like this guy, because I'd hate to have him mad at me, because I know what he could do the way he wheels that jack. And I hadn't heard anything about him in a while, for a long time, and it was really good to see him out there at pit road and see him on the racetrack at the races, and to really see the three Wood brothers, the three original Wood brothers, back together again one more time.
Another hot topic, obviously, going into Richmond is the chase. We got 5 people that are chase eligible that have not won a race yet, and we got a bunch of talented drivers right outside the chase that a win puts them in, such as Casey Kane, Greg Biffle, Kyle Larson, Austin Dillon, Tony Stewart, David Reagan, and I can't count out Trevor Bay. Who knows? He might show up. Is there any of those outside of the chase that you guys are looking at possibly upsetting one of the guys that think they're going as of right now? And if so, who do you think would get bumped? You got Clint Boyer sitting there at the last spot, but only 10 points behind Paul Menard, only 18 points behind Jeff Gordon. I mean, it would take a miracle to leap them as consistent as those other drivers have been, but there's always a possibility. So any dark horses and anybody you guys think might get bumped?
I think, I tell you, I kind of hate to say this because this is a real dark horse, but I can see Kyle Larson winning at Richmond and putting himself in the chase. That track, as the race goes on, Richmond does develop 2 grooves. It does get a high line that can be fast that you can run in, and you can pass on the outside if you got balls enough. At the going into 1 and 2 and coming off of 3 and 4. You can get up on that high line, keep your momentum up, drive that car off on that long front stretch that dog legs around. So I think it hasn't been proven yet, but that could prove to be one of Kyle Larson's best tracks because it suits his driving style. And I think with McMurray, pretty much he's guaranteed to be in. All he's got to do is start the race, and he's in the chase. I'm sure Ganassi Racing is devoting all their energy into getting Kyle in the race, and he's got a great guy in McMurray that can help him and tell him the fast way around that track, where to brake, where to gas, and all that. So that's going to be my dark horse, and that's who I'm hoping for is Kyle Larson.
Well, I'm going for who's 24th in points. And we're at a dawn and age right now where we forget who the heck Smoke is. But at the end of this weekend, we're going to all say Smoke has risen. Because I think that Tony knows what he's got to do this weekend. He's got to win a race. You win, you're in.
Yep.
And I think that I think he's the only person that could beat Carl Edwards at Homestead. I'm looking for that 14 car to upset the field. And how can you even call it an upset? It's Tony Stewart.
Yeah, Tony's, I don't know right offhand, but he's won a couple of races at Richmond. He's proven he can win there. He's proven he knows how to get around that track. And it's like Jeff Gordon, who's won a bunch of times at Richmond. It's just a track that suits their driving style, that they like to run. They feel confident running there, and it suits them, and I think it's good for them. And one other thing I just thought about is I'm sitting here talking about these 3 drivers, and what do they have in common? They're all dirt track drivers. They're all sprint car drivers. That's where they got their start. And maybe there's something there about that track that makes a driver like that perform better or run better there. I don't know, but it's something else to think about.
Well, I mean, we're questioning Tony Stewart's retirement. If he's not trying to retire, we're going to find out this weekend. I think that this could be the fire that lights back up underneath Smoke's butt, and we see Mark Martin was still winning at 55, so you can't tell me that the age has something to do. I think it's more internally, it's more emotionally, and look, the man's always raced every day of his life, and he's had to restrict himself on that. It takes a while to get back in the groove.
To answer the question, 3 wins at Richmond, last one coming May 5th, 2002. All 3 wins have come at Joe Gibbs Racing. Best finish recently, 3rd place back in 2005 for Tony Stewart at Richmond International Speedway, to answer that question. To Steve's dark horse, I don't think that's a very dark horse. I know that's what you started off with. I, as well, could see Kyle Larson winning the race. I could see any one of these 3 possibly winning. I'm not going to count out Tony Stewart, but unless they show me something early on, it's been really hitting me. I think ever since the injury and then the Kevin Ward thing, Tony Stewart's just not been Tony Stewart, in my opinion. Casey Kane, Kyle Larson, or yes, I do not want to say this, but Austin Dillon. It seems that Austin Dillon in that number 3 car, they have been a little bit more consistent as of late, and we're seeing him up front a little bit more. One of those 3, I could see upsetting and sending either Clint Boyer or Paul Menard home.
Yeah, I wonder if the situation from 2 years ago at Richmond involving Clint Boyer and Michael Waltrip racing, I wonder if that's something Clint can put out of his mind and fully concentrate on the racing or not.
Maybe something that motivates him,
isn't it?
Well, it could motivate him. We could look at it in 2 ways. It could disappoint him, or it could motivate him. I mean, anytime that a driver's making a career change, we've seen Brad Keselowski break his ankle. We've watched and win a championship. We watched Kyle Busch. Watched Denny Hamlin. They were just talking about 2010. He won 8 races, finished 2nd in the championship. With a torn ACL. So put guys under pressure and see what they can do. And Clint, along with the other 3 drivers that y'all named. I mean, it gets you. I tell you what, it's proven itself to be a darn good race.
Yeah, it does. And speaking of Denny Hamlin, people are wondering, why, if his knees got a tore ACL, why is he going to continue driving and everything? One, from what I understand, and CJ probably knows better than I do, when you tear your ACL, you really can't make it any worse. I mean, it's pretty much bad, and it's as bad as it's going to get. But so he could keep racing like that. But I wonder, with all his injuries, he has an injury every year, neck spasms, his back, the second time for his knee and everything. I'm just wondering if somebody at Joe Gibbs Racing didn't sit him down and tell him, you either finish the season out or in this car, or Eric Jones is going to be driving this car next year. Or Eric's in the wings and just waiting for a seat to open up. So maybe that's what's got him racing. I don't know, but
I watched NASCAR. I watched NASCAR America earlier, and they were talking about, because the fact that it's his right foot, and pretty much he'll have his heel down and kind of just, use the throttle. And it's not as severe as when he had his left foot and you're constantly braking and everything else, especially this being a short track. So they feel that it's not going to be such a big deal. Now, his crew chief, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, and it's sitting right there. It seemed like it's Scott something or something, Scott or something. But his crew chief, no, that's not Gary.
No, it's Dave Rogers.
That's right. That's right. It's Kyle's old crew chief.
But his crew chief actually went to Denny Hamlin and asked him, should they have somebody ready just in case? And Denny Hamlin told him, no, I am going to finish this race. To me, this race they're in. to me, I would just start the race so you got credit for starting the race and sub somebody out. You got a lot of drivers. This is just kind of a free weekend to either win the race or not, not have to worry about finishing, bringing the car back home because you're already in. It really doesn't make a difference. There's a few of them that, yes, with the points bonus going in the first round, yes, you might want that win, but, that's all you really want is either the win or go home if you're already locked into the chase. Now, obviously, the 5 that have no win and the one's just outside, yes, this is a do-or-die kind of situation. But with Denny Hamlin being locked in, with his win, I don't see why you take a chance with that and just start and get out of the car so you don't further possibly damage anything. I understand that there's not a lot of movement with that right foot, and that's what they're banking on. But who says he doesn't get in a really bad wreck, and because you're already hurt and you're already kind of weak down there, it doesn't further the injury even worse going into the chase. We saw Dale Jr., ultimately, that was probably his best shot at winning it when he was second in points and he took himself out with a concussion. You don't want to put yourself, Joe Gibbs Racing or Denny Hamlin more specifically because he's kind of been up and down. I don't think you would want to put yourself in that predicament where you're going to the chase with the momentum you have over Joe Gibbs Racing and go into the last race, a race you really don't need to race at, just start to get credit for it and be pulled out versus taking a chance of carrying this momentum into the chase.
I agree with that, but on the other hand, I can see where Denny would want to get in there and get the win because there'll be 5 cars in the chase that hadn't won a race, and then there's a bunch more that, including Denny, that only have one victory. So if Denny gets a win at Richmond and gets 2 victories, that's going to bump him up good in the standings to line up for the chase.
You got 3 people counting him: Brad Keselowski, Truex, and Denny Hamlin. That got 3 wins. So ultimately, you're only moving up to 10 points on top of Keselowski. Well, I say only because Keselowski is, I think, almost everybody's at least Final 8, if not Final 4. And Truex, he's kind of fizzled off. I understand the logic, but you're really only going to gain 1 position on 2 guys, possibly 3rd if one of the non-winning guys wins, and now you're stuck tied with them. I just don't know if I would risk that chance knowing what the possibilities are with your momentum going into the chase.
Well, I understand that too, but on the other hand, have you ever heard of a race car driver that wasn't willing to take that extra chance and everything? The thing that makes race car drivers great, Kyle Busch is a perfect example of this, is they have a massive ego that they have to feed. And they're like Dale Earnhardt Sr. They don't really care what it is. They'll race anything just to race and just to say that they beat somebody else or beat the whole field. So I think, that there's a challenge there, and it's just really any driver's temperament to get out there and race and try to, they want to show up at the racetrack, beat everybody, take the check, kiss the beauty queen, and ride home thinking, tonight I was the best one there. I think that motivates them and that drives them a lot.
Yep, I agree. Think about Dale Earnhardt Jr. when he stepped in Kyle Busch's car. What happened after that?
Yep.
I think
that had a lot to do with it.
It did. And the last thing Denny Hamlin wants to do is give somebody that chance.
Yeah.
It is racing. I do believe, and I say this on record, could possibly be the only sport where you have a torn ACL and you can still be active. It puts it puts pitchers, it puts football players out for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
But it goes back to if NASCAR lets them get in the car and they think that he can get out fast enough. I see where the safety concern is for sure, but you put a man in a dangerous situation, he forgets about the pain. So I guess it really comes down to NASCAR's call.
Well, I'm sure NASCAR is going to have him examined by a doctor of their choice to make sure, like you said, that he's capable of getting out of that car in a hurry if he has to. If something comes up, car catches on fire or something, how fast can he get out of that car? I think that's a lot of NASCAR's concern, not so much as how is he going to drive with his leg like that. You know, it's more of how is he going to react to a bad situation, and will he be able to react?
I think we'll see the 11 up front. I really do.
I wouldn't be surprised.
How do you make sure you don't get involved in a wreck? You just keep your butt up front. Keep that floor. Keep the
that being a small track, being up front puts you in lap traffic quicker than everybody else, though.
Yeah, but on the other hand, you get to kind of make your own path through there first. I know other guys can follow the way you're going, but you've got the flag man that's moving cars out of your way, and you know, you get to pick and choose your path first, where the guy in second might be forced to follow you through the pack until he gets an opening where he can try to pass you.
Definitely going to be an exciting weekend. I tell you what, because you got so many drivers on different agendas. You got drivers that are locked in with 3 or 4 victories, and you know it's all or nothing for them. They really don't care. You got probably about a good you got at least half the field out there, and win puts them in, so they're going to. You figure 16 or 17 through 30th, as long as you're in the top 30, you're eligible. So, you got a good 13 drivers that are going to do everything they can to win. And then you got those 5 drivers that, they're trying to manage their position. So, if they don't win, then at least their points still keep them in the chase. So, you got a lot of different strategies and a lot of different game plans. It's going to definitely make Richmond a very interesting race.
Hey, and you know what? We've almost won an entire radio show without talking about Danica Patrick. Let's all pull for Danica. Would that be cool?
If this race would have been about 3 or 4 weeks ago and we've seen her run more consistently up front, I could have seen us possibly picking her as a dark horse. But it seems like the last 2, 3, 4 weeks, we have not seen, pretty much since the contract signing, we have not seen the same Danica or the same 10 team as we have seen for the first part of the season.
Yeah, she definitely got a darker tan in the last few weeks. Seems like every time she's a little bit darker every time we see her on Twitter or Instagram.
Yeah. It's good to know she's relaxing a little bit.
If you go back and look at her record at Richmond, I think you'll be surprised. She's had some pretty good finishes up there, and so who knows, man? I guess what we'll know at the end of the week is somebody wanted it more than anybody else.
Yeah, and to me, Danica is like Kyle Busch. I don't really like her, that much. She's not on the top of my list of drivers, but I have a ton of respect for her just for what she's done, just to show up at the track knowing people are going to be talking bad about you and putting you down just because you're a woman, nothing to do with your driving ability, but just because of the sex that you are, to walk into that week and week and week in and week out and still perform and still smile, to me that's admirable. That's a tough dance to do, and I think she's handled it a lot better than a lot of other drivers, both male and female, could have handled that. And my hat's off to her. Like I said, I have a ton of respect for her, just not so much for the driver she is, but for the person she is. And I think the person she is what makes her a driver that she is, and she'll continue to get better.
Now, to Chris's comment about her stats. Right now, she averages 26.8 as a finishing place. Average start 27th, but more notably, the last two races. The spring race, she finished 25th, 2 laps down. Last fall race, though, she did finish 16th on the lead lap. By far her best performance at Richmond. So it seems the fall race has been a little bit better to her than the spring race. And, you know, she's in a Stewart-Haas machine. We know Kurt Busch and we know Kevin Harvick have both been strong and have been able to be in victory lane. I don't blame the equipment for Tony Stewart. I just think it's just been a really rough 2 years for him, and he just got a lot of things that he's had to, you know, sift through in his life on and off the track. So we know that Stewart-Haas has the equipment, and you know, them getting being affiliated with Hendrick Motorsports as well. Obviously, you know, that is what it is. So, you know, she's a very, 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 very dark, just about as dark as her tan as of lately, horse to win this race and get into the chase. I wouldn't necessarily count her out, but if I was going to Vegas, she would not be one of the top probably 20 drivers I would pick.
Yeah, but the thing that keeps popping in my mind is Richmond is basically a short track, and she has 2 top 10s that I can think of right offhand on the short track this year. She can run the short track. Mm-hmm. So, you know, that's something that's in her favor, too.
Yeah, I think we've seen that with Marcus Ambrose. It seems to be these open-wheel drivers have some kind of competitive advantage at road course races and at short tracks. And I would not say that it's too much of a stock car competitive advantage. What it is just knowing how to get in and out of that throttle, being from the open wheel world. And so, you know, Marcus Ambrose would run good at Richmond. He would run good at Bristol. Paul Menard, you know, he runs good at short tracks. So it is definitely a trend there. And like I said, I've seen an improvement with her, definitely at short tracks, definitely. And, you know, I expect them to get a top 10 finish. I'm expecting her to get a top 10.
Well, I think it's like, you know, we've all pretty much pointed out, she's just relaxed now than she was before she signed a contract to have a sponsor for next year. I think the sponsorship deal was settled, and that was off her mind. She could return to focusing 100% on racing, and I think that's helped her here toward the end of the year.
Yep. It's gonna be interesting.
It's getting up toward 11 o'clock, so I guess we got to shut this cattle drive down. While we've got a second, Chris, tell everybody on how they can follow you and keep up with you and what you like on social media.
I like race cars, and you can follow us at yellowcautionflag.com. And I like being on the radio, and I like these guys that I talk with every Thursday. Sorry I was late. I was actually making phone calls to people, and then I guess I needed to check my Facebook messages. But we need to exchange numbers. But I appreciate y'all, and we've had a great show, and look forward to it again next week.
Well, it was all right that you. I don't have a problem with anybody being late except for one of my girlfriends. Other than that,
bada bing, bada boom.
Don't bother me. Tell everybody see Mr. CJ Sports where they can keep up with you.
You guys can follow me on Twitter at CJ Sports1. You can hit up my fan page, Mr. CJ Sports. Make sure you guys check out the 110 Nation site over at www.the110nation.com, and also check out our blog site, www.the110nationsports.com.
Yeah, you can listen to CJ Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday nights, and this man is knowledgeable not just on racing, but pretty much any sport out there. He might not be too great on curling or something like that, but basic stick and ball sports, football, basketball, baseball, hockey, things like that, this man knows a lot. I listen to his show when I get a chance to, just because it gives me a chance to keep up with what's going on in pro football, what's going on in pro basketball, what's going on in Major League Baseball. So if those things interest you, if you just want to update and kind of keep up with it, check his stuff out Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. It's really good.
Thank you, sir.
That leaves me, and I'm not hard to find unless I owe you money. You can go on Twitter and find me at Big Sweat. They know me as the NASCAR Heartbreaker and Homewrecker there. I have a Facebook group, NASCAR and Other Racing, over 6,000 members in a little less than a year and a half, and Caution Flag and CJ are both members of the group. A lot of people you know are members of the group. A lot of drivers are members of our group. So there's a lot of information there, and our reputation is built on being a family-friendly site, no bashing of people or drivers or anything, no profanity, nothing vulgar or anything like that. We have quite a bit of drivers that are still teenagers. A lot of drivers that are 14, 15 years old that are in our group, and we try very hard not to offend them because of their age and because of the fact that their parents are in the group too, to keep an eye on what they're learning and everything. So we're just not an offensive group. You know, if that doesn't suit you, you want to get somewhere where you can cuss and make fun of other drivers and stuff, there's a bunch of wet Facebook pages out there you can go to. You don't need to come to ours. But if you want intelligent and informative racing conversations and discussions, come check us out. I think you'll be pleased with us. So that's going to do it for tonight's version of Racing with Big Sweat. I hate we had trouble with Blog Talk Radio at the beginning. I think that hurt the show, but we'll come back from it. We'll come back next week and be just as strong. I'm trying to get the guest lineup confirmed right now, but one I can tell you is I've got a Knoxville Speedway Hall of Fame driver that's going to be on next Thursday night, and that's as far as I'm going to go with that. If you want to hear more, tune in next Thursday. All right, guys, let's crank this cattle drive up and get out of here. Thanks again, people, for showing up. Hope you're here with us next week. Jimmy Haywood, if you're listening, love you, bud. And Fats, R.I.P., buddy. I'm going to miss you. We'll talk to y'all later. See ya.